There's only one word that can best describe our next bodybuilder, and that word is freak. You know him. You love him. You can't have this show without him. Markus Rühl!
He is a living, breathing caricature of what a bodybuilder is supposed to look like.
The judges actually told him he wasn't big enough, and I don't know what they were looking at, but he is the biggest man here tonight.
I never feel myself big like people see me.
You'd actually show up and like make guys at the top look fucking small.
You are a freak of the freaks.
The most freakish man I've ever seen. That's Markus Rühl.
I don't think Markus ever looked normal.
He was the most muscular bodybuilder of all time.
You're too small now, the next time.
Markus Rühl's about to take my place, so he's the next champion and the up-and-coming best bodybuilder of all time.
A quick look at Markus Rühl makes one thing clear. This was not a symmetrically artful physique. While he was never the judge's favorite, Markus was nothing if not victorious in his quest to put on as much mass as possible, becoming one of the freakiest bodybuilders of all time. His 5'10", 280-pound frame was a sight to behold. His enormous traps, shoulders, chest, and arms made him a fan favorite on stage and magazine covers. Achieving the pinnacle of mass, he routinely rivaled Ronnie Coleman and Cutler for loudest crowd reaction whenever he crunched out of his frighteningly colossal, most muscular pose. At the height of his reign, Ronnie Coleman himself admitted that Markus was superior to him. Despite that, he only won 2 pro shows during his 14-year career, and his highest Olympia placing was 5th. As much as the fans loved him, the judges didn't. From being told he wasn't big enough to getting his placement changed in the last second in favor of another competitor. Many fans thought that he was robbed on multiple occasions. From a skinny soccer player to becoming one of the freakiest humans to walk the earth. This is the story of the most underrated giant in bodybuilding.
Deswegen bin ich auch, wie ich bin. Ich bin ein ganz armer Junge, der in Rostock aufgewachsen ist, unter ganz bürgerlichen Verhältnissen. Mein Vater ist leider früh verstorben. Das war schon am 30. Dezember 1978, da war ich gerade 6 Jahre gewesen, ist mein Vater an Bauchspeicheldrüsenkrebs verstorben. Gott sei Dank kann man sagen, als Kind nicht alles mitbekommen. Gesehen, wie er langsam die Haare verloren hat, wie er sich oft mit Blut übergeben hat, wie er langsam verhungert ist. War damals noch so, da haben wir ein Restaurant, haben wir dann so eine Beerdigungsfeier. Da habe ich die Mama gefragt, Mama, das ist ja schön, wann kommt der Papa wieder? Ich habe das nicht verstanden, dass der jetzt nicht mehr da ist. Ne? Ich habe einfach meinen Papa vermisst, wie jeder junge Mann oder jeder junges Kind, genau wie die Mama. Aber meine Mutter hat mir alles an Liebe und Wärme gegeben, was mir nötig war. Und ich habe auch nichts vermisst im Leben, aber klar.
Dass du Fußball gespielt hast, das weiß ich ja von dir. Sport ist sau wichtig. Für dich war es dann aber irgendwann nicht mehr. Der Fußball, gab es in der Jugendzeit irgendwann so einen Punkt? Hat dich irgendwer Richtung Bodybuilding?
I started bodybuilding the age of 18 years. And I was a very, very small guy. Because I played soccer 10 years before and my body weight was 120 pounds. Before I go in the gym the first time. The reason why I go in the gym was my doctor says to me, I have a big injury in my left knee from the soccer and I have to go in the gym and build some muscles on my left leg. When I start training, I would say not bodybuilding, training or fitness. I just go in the gym to have fun and to be a little bit bigger than all the other guys or my friends.
Bin ich ein sehr zielstrebiger Mensch geworden. Ja. Also auch sehr introvertiert, habe gar nicht mehr so die Gesellschaft gebraucht. Das habe ich früher gemacht. 15, 16 Mal Party, saufen und da habe ich halt viel Scheiße gemacht. Ne? Ja. Aber wo ich dann mit Bodybuilding angefangen habe, war ich sehr zielstrebig. Und da ist Fußball meine Liebe, da ist Bodybuilding auch eine Liebe. Aber das kann ich mir mit meinem Sein vereinnahmen, also mit meinem Sport reingebracht. Ich konnte mich da einfach mehr verwirklichen, da habe ich mich mehr gesehen, mehr erkannt. Ich habe gedacht, okay, den Sprung zum Bodybuilding, der fällt mir relativ leicht. Habe aber nie den Gedanken gehabt, jetzt irgendwann mal Profi zu werden oder.
I can't believe it. These pictures are from 1992. I'm just training 2 years.
Deine Eltern dich in der Laufbahn unterstützt haben, so?
Ja, also Eltern, mein Vater ist relativ früh gestorben, da war ich gerade mal, Vater ist ja schon eine Bezugsperson. Ja. Finde ich halt immer schwierig, weil letztendlich musst du ja selber mit dem Arsch aus dem Dreck ziehen. Und meine Mutter hat mich natürlich mit allem unterstützt, was ging. War bei meinem ersten Wettkampf auch dabei, habe es aber dann darum gebeten, nie mehr dahin zu gehen, weil sie lautest im Publikum war und geschrien hat, ja mein Schatz, ich liebe dich. Und das war halt schwierig, weil die Doppelbizeps.
Markus was a late starter, but a fast riser.
One guy said to me, I'm so big and I have to go on stage.
He was competing in German championships for a couple of years. And he told me, Markus, why you didn't go on stage? You look phenomenal. I tell you how to make a preparation and then do me a favor, go on stage.
92 ganz gut aufgebaut, 93 Pause gemacht wegen der Bundeswehrnummer. Ne, 92 wegen der Bundeswehr.
After his military service, Markus planned to make his competitive debut at the 1994 Newcomer Championships in Hessen. But a shoulder injury during contest prep got in the way, forcing him instead to make his debut at the 1995 Bachgau Cup, where he'd won the heavyweight and overall titles at 243 pounds.
I was coming on stage and all the audience was there, wow, what the fuck is that?
How big this guy really is?
How big is this guy?
1 week later, the 23-year-old upped the stakes by competing at the Hessen Grand Prix, this time finishing second place in the heavyweights in a tougher lineup. Markus's placings in his first 2 shows motivated him to continue training hard while working at a car dealership, where he worked 10 hours a day. He knew that he needed more size before he was ready to advance to the higher levels of competition beyond his native Germany, so he spent the rest of the year doing just that. By 1997, Markus reached a new high body weight of 258 pounds and went on to dominate the German nationals, which would land him the opportunity of a lifetime.
Then I go on stage and I won the German overall. Nobody believes it, but I didn't believe in myself.
I won my amateur show, the German overall, with 115 kilos.
I mean, that's the heaviest guy ever been on stage in Germany. So that's it why I never get the call out. I said, maybe I look too good or maybe I look too bad. I got now only 2 choices. And then they give me the title, just Markus, you get it.
No
That's
posing.
It. No posing, nothing.
I don't think Markus ever looked normal. I remember Markus when he got his pro card at the International German Championship. Even then you could see that this is a freak.
Then I was preparing for the World Amateur Champion show. And then I got a telephone call from Wayne DeMilia. He was the chairman of the IFBB Pro Division.
Yes.
He gives me this telephone call. He said, hey, Markus, I saw a picture of you when you win the German overall. I sent you the pro card. I want to have you next year in New York.
I'm the first professional in Germany who get the pro card without a world champion. That's terrific for me.
It's because people train for 10, 12 years. Didn't get any result and I trained only 3 years. And then I get the pro card. It was a very fun thing.
Shortly after, he entered the 1997 German Grand Prix, where he came in 10th. At first glance, it seemed like a disappointing placement, until you look at the rest of the lineup, which included guys like Nasser El Sambadi, Paul Dillette, Ronnie Coleman, and the eventual winner, Kevin Levrone. After such an overwhelming experience of being thrust among the world's very best bodybuilders before the ink on his pro card got dry, Markus took a good look in the mirror and knew he needed to be better next time to stand as an equal among them. He hit the gym with his training partner, Mark Arnold, with the goal of showing up with more mass combined with sharper definition for his very first competition on American lands the following year. It's the 1998 Night of Champions, and Markus wanted to make an impact on his first time on U.S. soil. When he arrived in New York at 265 pounds, many thought he'd finish no lower than top 6. And although the judges only allotted him 9th place, the crowd took notice of him and would be on the lookout next time for the blonde giant. At the 1999 British Grand Prix, Markus moved up 3 places from his last Grand Prix, coming 7th behind the likes of Nasser, Dexter Jackson, Flex Wheeler, and the current Mr. Olympia. Even Milo Sarcev, who came in 5th, didn't believe how he placed ahead of Markus.
You're probably referring to 99 British Grand Prix. When I look pose by pose, it's like, how on earth did I beat Markus? Look at Markus.
The real focus was the 1999 Night of Champions. Markus showed up at a huge, diced 270 pounds and was instantly the crowd's favorite. He hit his poses long and hard, which allowed the judges to become plainly aware of his domination when looking for muscularity and mass. Everything about Markus said size and power, from his overwhelming size to his unmatched striated delts. But to the surprise of everyone, in a controversial decision, he was called in for 4th place, while Paul Dillette, who was in less than his best, took 1st. Loud chants of bullshit echoed angrily inside the Beacon Theater as trash was hurled on stage. Head judge Steve Weinberger turned to face the mob, looking on the verge of violence himself in all the heated emotion. On the bright side, though, the sensational giant was qualified to step on the biggest stage in bodybuilding.
a dream come true for me because it's always the best bodybuilders of the world. And my goal is I compete under the first 10, so I can do the Mr. Olympia next year. And then my goal is under the first 6, I hope so.
Markus managed to gain another 10 pounds since his Night of Champions appearance and came into Las Vegas at 275 pounds. As often is the case with Olympia rookies, he didn't get called out for comparisons until quite late in the prejudging. While another rookie by the name of Jay Cutler could only manage 15th place this year, Markus was 12th before his drug test results came back positive for diuretics, leading to his disqualification.
99, Markus failed the test because he tried to trick the guy. And the guy was impossible to trick because in the bathroom, I mean, literally he would, stare at your dick.
Markus ended the year with a 7th place in the IFBB World Pro Championships and was ready to make 2000 his year. Y2K would be a breakout year for Markus, but not without hitting a few roadblocks first. He began preparing for the Toronto Pro and his 3rd Night of Champions, but a shoulder injury threatened to hold back his training for 4 to 6 weeks. Deciding not to repeat the 1994 scenario when he had to bail out of his first contest with an almost identical injury, Markus decided to cut his time off short to just 5 days. He carefully worked around the injury and lightened the weights when necessary. His instincts would later prove correct, as he scored his first pro victory over the Blade, Dexter Jackson, in the Toronto Pro, before placing second to Jay Cutler, who was also scoring his first pro win that year at the Night of Champions.
I was training like crazy and, I got really in great shape for that show. I ended up about 260, but I ended up pumping up backstage with Mike Matarazzo. He's like, dude, you got to see Markus Rühl. Like, he won last week in Toronto and no one's touching this guy. And I'm like back there pumping up with Mike being like, oh shit, am I going to be able to stand next to? So I come out and then I end up winning.
Bin dann Zweiter geworden, sehr knapp hinter dem Jay Cutler, der an diesem Tag einfach eine Spur härter war oder eine Spur mehr amerikanischer, wie man will.
The curse of preparation injuries was still chasing Markus this year, as he ruptured his belly button and suffered from an umbilical hernia while in the final stages of preparation for the Olympia. But once again, he chose to push on. At 280 dense pounds, Markus was the heaviest man in this year's Mr. Olympia, but could only muster 7th place, ahead of Jay, whom he lost to only a few months earlier, which would still be considered an improvement given the circumstances and since Markus didn't even officially place in last year's Olympia. At the end of the year, Markus would finish 5th in the British Grand Prix right before getting a hernia surgery. And with his breakthrough year coming to an end, it seemed like the following year would be the complete opposite. With each Olympia showing, Markus was placing higher than the one before, and 2001 might just be the year he finally cracked the top 5. In an effort to make that reality, he decided to forego the spring shows and just do guest posing and appearances until gearing up for the Olympia that fall. Feeling he was too heavy in the last Olympia, he decided to come in completely shredded this time. The 2 hours of daily cardio, in addition to his 2 daily 2-hour weight training sessions, lost his upper body much of its typical fullness. To him, the trade-off was worth it, but as usual, fate would intervene. 5 weeks out from the show, his belly button ruptured again, with no time for surgery. This time, it looked far worse than before.
My goal for this year is to compete in the top 6 to make a great place, because that's my 3rd year now at the Mr. Olympia, and I think my condition is so good this year that I have the chance, and I hope the judges give me the chance to make a good place, and my goal is the top 6. That's what I want.
Unfortunately for him, the judges wouldn't give him the chance he was hoping for.
And here comes the biggest man in the contest tonight. The judges actually told him he wasn't big enough, and I don't know what they were looking at, but he is the biggest man here tonight.
Probably repulsed at the disfigurement, the judges didn't give him decent call-outs and fell to 14th place. Feeling like all his efforts were for nothing, Markus was depressed. In his frustration and intense sense of disillusionment, the 28-year-old seriously contemplated retirement. With the help of his family and the support of his legion of fans, Markus was able to put 2001 behind him, and less than a year later, he was going to stun the entire world of bodybuilding. One thing about the New York fans is that they love a freak. And when it comes to the Night of Champions, which has later come to be known as the New York Pro, Markus had become something of a mascot of this show ever since he stepped foot on that stage back in '98. After the 2001 setback, Markus cast his gaze on that elusive title. He'd learned his lesson from the overtraining follies of the previous year, so he cut back on his training volume and cardio, ignored the numbers on the scale, and started to judge his condition by the mirror, as he knew the judges would. And the result? The freakiest Markus Rühl bodybuilding has ever seen.
Und da hieß es, gewinnen kannst du das Ding eh nicht, weil der Bob Ciccarello macht mit. Ja, und dann hieß Bob Ciccarello, denke ich, wer ist denn das? Ich wusste überhaupt nicht, wer das ist. Und da war ich aber damals schon 5 Jahre voll im Geschäft. Ich wusste nicht, wer der Bob Ciccarello ist. Der war in den USA schon ein Star.
At 290 colossal pounds, Markus blew away the field of 30 competitors, putting on the most iconic show of his career to the music of Rammstein. According to Markus, his posing routine was completely improvised on the spot. And what he lacked in sense of rhythm and agility, he more than made up for with his charisma and pure freaky mass. Even more impressive was how he was struggling with the effects of his umbilical injury on stage as his abdominal muscles cramped, which made posing much more difficult. Nevertheless, Markus dwarfed every single competitor, including the favorite going into the show and last year's winner Bob Ciccarello, who had to accept the runner-up spot this year, and the '99 champ Paul Dillette, who was relegated to 6th place this year. After having given up hope that the judges would ever allow him to win after past experiences, the German giant was pleasantly surprised when he was announced as the winner, an occurrence that would never happen again. Elated and humbled both at the judges' recognition of his superiority that day and the tremendous adulation of the New York crowd, Markus felt his spirit renewed. But it wasn't going to be smooth sailing for long. While preparing for the Toronto show the next week, some spoiled oatmeal gave him digestion problems, which cost him a whole 10 pounds of fullness, opening the door for rookie Art Atwood to beat him and nail his first IFBB win. However, this year's Olympia still held a glimpse of hope for the German.
I feel wherever I go, the fans stand to me and give me the support that I need, and it makes me very happy wherever I come. The fans cry and Ruhl, and it's fantastic when you go on stage and hear that.
8th place, Markus Rühl.
After a year that's best described as a mixed bag of triumphs and letdowns, Markus continued to cement himself as one of the best in the business. He made his Arnold Classic debut at the 2003 contest, but despite bringing a package close enough to his 2002 Night of Champions one, he'd ended up in 3rd place behind Jay Cutler and Chris Cormier, a result that wasn't to his liking.
Ich sag's mal ganz ehrlich, ich hätte 2003 den Arnold Classics Titel verdient gehabt. Aber sowas von Abstand, wo ich besser war an dem Tag, ich war echt in Topform. Ich hätte scheiß Ding gewinnen müssen gegen den Cutler. Ich war echt absolut ausgezehrt, also komplett dehydriert. Dann bist du zum VIP-Bankett. Ne? Das erste, was ich gemacht habe, da standen 21 Dosen Cola Light. Die habe ich komplett leer gesoffen. Komplett. Hier. Und das war die Rebuierkutsche. Und der Jay kam so, Markus, did you finish all the diet? And I said, yes, buddy. Ich hab gedacht, siehst du Arsch, das nächste Mal ist er mir die drauf hier. Ne?
Around August 20th, the familiar ghost of injuries would come to haunt Markus again. While performing a set of barbell bench presses, he tore his tricep and had to undergo surgery to reattach it. Markus would have to sit this one out, but the following year he'd return with vengeance. Markus started 2004 with a return to the Arnold Classic. He tipped the scale at 275 pounds and seemed to have no ill effects from last year's tricep surgery. In what popular opinion ruled as a controversial decision, he dropped to 5th place behind Günter Schlierkamp, as many thought the pair should have switched placings. Throughout the show, he wasn't being compared with the top 3, those being Jay Cutler, Chris Cormier, and Dexter Jackson respectively. Although it was pretty clear that last year's 3rd placer wouldn't finish that high this year, some thought he could at least walk off with the most muscular award, which eventually went to Jay Cutler, alongside his third and last Arnold Classic title. 3 Grand Prix contests later, and Markus was ready to put on his best Olympia showing ever.
I welcome you to the annual Joe Weider Mr. Olympia weekend.
There's only one word that can best describe our next bodybuilder, and that word is freak. You know him, you love him. You can't have this show without him. All the way from Germany, Markus Rühl.
The 2004 Mr. Olympia witnessed the introduction of the new challenge round, a one-on-one, pick-your-pose sort of contest that changed the way the final top 6 were scored in the last round. The top 6 competitor scores were discarded after round 3, and only the final round mattered in determining who would win. The 5'10", 285-pounder brought enough beef to the stage to match the reigning champ biceps for biceps and front lats for front lats.
I beat a lot of guys in different poses like Dexter, Gustavo Bardell, Gundish Leerkamp, but that was the pose where I spin next to Ronnie Coleman. And Triple H asked me, Markus, which kind of pose you want to make next to Ronnie? And I go, what the how I can beat Ronnie Coleman?
Most muscular. Most muscular.
And I would say 80% of the whole audience see that I beat Ronnie in this pose, but the judges give it to Ronnie. But he's coming back to me on stage. He said, Markus, I know you did it. But anyway, I'm the Olympia, you can't beat me. I said, no, Ronnie, it's totally all right.
Eventually, he came in 5th place behind Ronnie, Jay, Gustavo Bardell, and Dexter Jackson.
Ich hätte vielleicht 2004 beim Olympia den 3. Platz verdient gehabt, weil ich auch an dem Platz, ganz klar, war ich besser wie ein Jay Cutler. Ich war nicht besser wie ein Ronnie Coleman, ja. Aber ein 3. Platz hinterm Dexter hätte ich 100% verdient gehabt.
Although Markus disagreed with his placement, he'd finally managed to crack the top 5 like he always wanted. He was finally on top of the bodybuilding world.
Wenn du aber oben auf der Weltspitze angekommen bist, das heißt, du hast die Bergspitze erreicht, da wird es so schwer, da oben zu verharren, weil oben ist die Luft immer dünner.
One day, justice will be served and the right thing will be done. Your size and your shape, everything that you bring to the table will be recognized.
Back in a 2000 Muscle Mag International interview, Markus was asked whether he felt that he was at a publicity disadvantage, since the judges were far more familiar with the more famous names like Ronnie, Flex, and Kevin. That is true, he said, but one day the famous names will be Ruhl, Cutler, and Jackson. Before Jay Cutler was in the top 6 in the Olympia, and before Dexter Jackson had even won his first pro show, it seemed like Markus had called it. And when asked where he saw himself in 5 years, he stated that he would be top 5 in the world by then. He called it again. By all accounts, 2005 was looking up for Markus in every way, but no matter how much of a good predictor he was, he didn't see it turning into a year he'd rather forget. He'd finally become the 5th best bodybuilder on the planet, married his longtime girlfriend, moved into a beautiful new home outside Frankfurt, and began negotiations to buy the gym that served as his training headquarters and was featured in his best-selling DVDs. But in the spring, things began to slowly unravel. In what felt like the IFBB coming down on him personally, a mandate had been issued informing all athletes that from that point on, distended abdomens would be marked down, and the more aesthetic shape would be rewarded over sheer bulk. All of a sudden, it seemed like Markus had better somehow morph his physique into a smaller, more streamlined version, and abandon the freaky size which had always been his hallmark. During prep, he gradually saw that his waist was coming down, along with everything else. To make matters worse, the constant use of nasal spray to ease free breathing while training had eaten away his membranes, resulting in non-stop nosebleeds which required a surgery of the nasal passages in late August. A slight muscle tear just weeks before the Olympia exacerbated the matter, but Markus was able to keep it all together until he arrived in Las Vegas in very good condition. He wasn't at his usual size, but it was a necessary trade-off to give the judges what they'd asked for. But things were about to get complicated even further. At the last minute, an error in his carb up caused him to spill over. With the clock ticking away at the moment he had to get on stage, Markus did his best to shed the excess water. but went too far with it. On the brink of giving up, he decided to press forward like he always did. He took the stage smaller and flatter, and knew in the pump-up room before the show started that any hopes he had of remaining in the top 5 would be a pipe dream.
Do you feel confident this year you might knock Ronnie off of his throne?
No, that's not my goal, to knock Ronnie from the throne. My goal is to come in the final again, and it will be fine when I do it next year, maybe.
He won the Freakiest Order award last year and $10,000 to go with it, but he's not what he looked like last year from where I'm sitting right now. He is a newlywed, I'll give him that, and he did have to travel all the way from Germany. But this is the Mr. Olympia, and we have seen Markus a little bit better, if you can believe that or not. But I don't know, he looks a little bit off here tonight.
So, da liege ich auf dem Bett. Retouching war gerade vorbei. Vieles durch den Kopf, das sieht man ja auch hier auf den Bildern. Mir war im Vornherein schon klar, 2005 wohl nicht mein Jahr sein wird, weil einfach zu viel dran hing. Also ich habe schon gedacht, einen Finalplatz schaffst du nicht. Aber einen Top-10-Platz dachte ich auf jeden Fall, der ist drin. Aber da ging ja wirklich alles kaputt. Und ich habe dann wirklich ans Aufhören gedacht. Was wird jetzt aus mir? Soll ich mit Bodybuilding weitermachen oder schmeiße ich es hin?
In the end, Markus slipped to an unfortunate 15th place, the lowest in his career so far. But the misfortunes were about to hit even harder starting next year. After a disastrous 15th place, the realization hit him. He was trying to be something he was not, and the consequences had been grave. It was finally time to bring back the freak. Markus went back to his old heavy training with a fury, climbing to an all-time high off-season weight of 340 pounds. But if you've paid any attention to Markus's story so far, you can probably guess what's coming next. He suffered a pec tear, but in true Markus fashion, he still pushed on and earned his Olympia qualification at the Santa Susana Pro, where he got a controversial second to the Spanish native Paco Bautista. Not totally surprising, since there were a few Spanish judges on the panel. A few weeks later, Markus took his enormous 280-pound physique onto the big stage, where he'd do his best to redeem himself for last year.
Last year I do some very important things, some very important private things. So my focus was not only on bodybuilding. That's one reason why I competed last year in this terrible shape. My focus was only on bodybuilding for the last 11 months. I improved myself, I'm back, I'm the best package ever. I'm bigger than ever. Hopefully the judges give me the chance to get some good call-outs, to show them what I have. And then it's no problem to compete and place in the top 8, maybe in the top 5 again.
In 8th place, Markus Rühl.
Although he was hoping to do better than 8th, he accepted it and was grateful to be back in the top 10 where he belongs, saying, "This was a very tough Olympia this year. You have a lot of guys in very good shape, and everyone was trying to take the title away from Ronnie. I was just glad to show everyone that last year was not the real me." Motivated to get back into his real deserved position among the top 5, he went back to training. But the pec tear from earlier this year would come back to haunt him in ways he couldn't have imagined. 2007, in a way, marked the end of the German giant's career. His pec tear from last year seemed to get worse, as it created a permanent deformity which was reflected in his placements, as he failed to place at the Olympia and finished 9th at the Arnold Classic. As a result, Markus decided that his time on stage had come to an end.
Jeder erwartet natürlich super Dinge von was, wenn sie denken, die Fans sind enttäuscht, die Familie ist enttäuscht, Freunde sind enttäuscht. Aber die Leute vergessen immer, dass es einen persönlich natürlich am meisten betrifft. Vieles kaputt geht in einem.
Wo du vielleicht nicht die Erwartungen erfüllst. Und das Schlimmste ist die Erwartung, wo du selber an dich stellst. Wenn du enttäuscht bist, weil du nicht so performst, wie du das vorstellst, weil du irgendwas falsch gemacht hast, die Enttäuschung, die nimmt dir keiner.
Markus, you towards the chest, towards the end?
It was from 2006 it starts, that it turns from the inner side to the outside, and even it goes more every year, even more. And I talked to so many doctors and professors, nobody knows what's going on there. And nobody knows when is it torn, why is it torn, and what's the reason. Nobody knows what's going on. That was the main reason why I retired.
Hi guys, I'm sure you hear that I'm retired from the professional bodybuilding stage. I made this decision right after the Arnold Classics because we see that my chest was torn and there was no way
to get with a surgery to bring my back. I want to thank you with that little message. I want to thank all my fans for hundreds and hundreds of very nice emails. I'm retired from the stage, not from bodybuilding. Wish you all the best. And Ruhl Rules.
The pressure of expectations from fans, as well as his own expectations, was too much to handle. Especially when he was constantly compared to his 2002 Night of Champions package that he was never able to replicate. After taking 2008 off from competing and after the overwhelming support from his fans, Markus was able to rekindle his passion and motivation, and he decided to make a comeback at the one show closest to his heart. But instead of making a comeback to a glorious victory, the biggest robbery of his career was awaiting him.
Form ist sehr ansprechend, würde ich sagen. Das Beste, was ich jetzt geschafft habe. Ich träume jetzt nicht vom ersten Platz oder so. Ich bin eigentlich sehr realistisch. Und für unser Ziel ist die Top 5. Ja. Wenn das klappt, dann freue ich mich. Alles, was mehr ist, ist Zugabe. Und, ja. Aber ich gehe eigentlich entspannt bei, weil warum soll ich mir jetzt den Druck machen? Ich denke schon, dass es wohl die letzte Show sein wird. Erfolge hat und nach dem schlechten Abschneiden beim Olympia hat man halt schon überlegt, ja, machen wir jetzt nochmal was oder soll es das gewesen sein? Aber dafür war die Karriere einfach zu erfolgreich, dass man mit so einem Scheißplatz dann aufhört. Das war unser Gedanke, mit ein bisschen Abstand halt von ein paar Monaten zu überlegen, ob wir doch vielleicht nochmal ein kleines Comeback starten. Klappt mal, dann ist das wohl ein schöner Ausklang.
Unfortunately, that wasn't going to happen.
Das war mit das beste Paket, was ich so mitgebracht habe, von Masse, Härte. Ja. Ich meine, die haben immer verlangt von mir, ja, du musst ein bisschen härter im Beinbizep Pro-Bereich werden. Das habe ich jetzt toll hingekriegt, ansatzweise Streifen gehabt im Gluteus.
Wir haben 2009, habe ich ja in New York nochmal mitgemacht, ne? Das war ja von meinem Rücktritt das Comeback und da habe ich bei der New York Pro mitgemacht. Und da war als Favorit der Evan Zetopani, ich und der Dennis James. Wir waren die 3 Leute, wo es klar war, unter uns 3 läuft das Ding heute. Und ich war nach dem Prejudging Erster. Als Beweis, Kameramann hat das Bild vom Scoresheet von den Kampfrichtern original, weil er hinten geguckt hat und hat es fotografiert. Markus Rühl, 1. Platz. Mit Idealpunktzahl. Und abends muss man ganz ehrlich sagen, morgens ist die Hauptveranstaltung, da werden die Platzierungen gemacht. Wer morgens Erster ist, wird zu 99% abends Gewinner. Das ist immer so. Auf jeden Fall war ich klar Erster. Und abends, auf einmal haben sie der Evan weg und der Dennis guckt mich noch so an. Ich so, Alter, was läuft denn hier? Und dann sagt der Dennis, ach, gleich weißt du, was erlebe.
Third place finisher, Markus Rühl.
Toll, herzlichen Glückwunsch, ja. Gut, nimm deinen 3. Platz, verpiss dich. Und ich dachte nicht so wie. Ich habe gar nicht reagiert am Anfang. Das kann jetzt nicht wahr sein. Da bescheißen die mich um 2 Plätze. Und 2. wird der Dennis. Ich habe dann nur gelacht, weil der Dennis dann zu mir gesagt hat, Markus, du weißt, wer gewonnen hat. Du, Zetopani, 1. Und warum ist Zetopani 1. gewonnen? Ja, weil er im Na, da ist natürlich auch Politik im Spiel, ganz klar. So ist das.
Las Vegas, Nevada, we're here at the Olympia weekend. Ladies and gentlemen, the German Giant, Markus Rühl.
And here he is back at the Olympia. We thought he had retired after he had a tough showing at the Olympia a couple of years ago, but he decided to get back in the mix.
Schnitte habe. Ich habe vorhin gerade erfahren, ich bin tatsächlich nur 15. gewonnen. Das ist natürlich absolut enttäuschend, weil ich mir schon Hoffnung auf die Top 10 gemacht habe. Und ich denke auch aufgrund der Form, wo ich hatte, wäre das absolut verdient gewesen. Aber wie auch immer, totale Beschiss wieder beim Olympia dieses Jahr, zumindest was die Platzierung 8 bis 15 anging. So manchen Tamagotchi oder Yamaguchi oder wie er heißt, kann ich immer noch der Arsch versohlen. Ja. Ein absolutes Lachblatt. Ja. Der gewinnt bei mir nicht mal die Männer 3 auf den Hessen. Da wird er 10. beim Olympia. Ja. Aber gut drauf geschissen. Ich weiß nicht, welchen Arsch er geleckt hat. Ich mach's nicht, deswegen bin ich halt nur 15. Ja.
After his 15th place at the Olympia and a 7th at the 2010 Europa Super Show, it was clear that his career was over. This time for real.
Wo ich mich dann entschlossen hatte, mit 40 aufzuhören. Du bist Sportler und irgendwann spürst du, dein Körper kann nicht mehr.
Wenn ich so im Rücken gelegen habe, so auf meine Lunge gedrückt, ich konnte nur noch auf der Seite oder auf den Bauch.
Ich habe meine ganze Jugend, also seit ich 19 bin, bis ich dann 40 geworden bin, habe ich nur für den Sport gelebt.
Ich kann nicht mehr, ich kann es mental nicht mehr, ich krieg das nicht mehr auf die Kette. Mich macht das alles psychisch fertig. Und du führst dir den Krieg gegen dich selber über 15, 20 Jahre lang, da kann dir keiner helfen. Viele fragen, ärgerst dich, dass du das und das nicht gewonnen hast oder da und da. Sag ich, nee, ich fand es schade, dass ich mich nicht anders habe verabschieden können. Ich habe 20 Jahre lang nur für den Sport gelebt.
Nur, ausschließlich und jeden Tag. Mir war das ja schon zu viel, einfach einkaufen zu gehen, weil mich die Menschen nervös gemacht haben. Für mich war das ein Graus. Also ich habe zu meinem Wellensittich ein besseres Verhältnis gehabt wie zu jedem Menschen. Außer beim Trainingspartner noch. Ich glaube, wenn man immer nur so auf diese 3., 4., 5. platziert worden ist wie ich bin immer hungrig gewesen. Ich wollte immer besser werden. Ich wollte. Du musst es ja wollen. Weißt du? Guck mal, morgens aufstehen, Cardio, stinkbar, schwitzen, fressen, schlafen. Da gab es keinen Plan B. Ja? Und das sind so Dinge, ich habe alles nach der Uhr gemacht. Im Nachhinein muss ich sagen, ich war 15 Jahre im Tunnel. Und habe wie auf einem anderen Planeten gelebt. Und der Planet hieß Bodybuilding. Und dann bin ich irgendwann von dem Planet weggeflogen und kam im Leben an und habe gedacht, wo bin ich denn jetzt eigentlich?
I love it, I love what I do, I love the sport, I love bodybuilding and hopefully I can make it.
Mein weltberühmten Thunfisch Proteinshake. That's it.